We'll see you then. Thank you, Kristen. She's been a controversial cabinet secretary ever since being nominated 4 years ago. Now Public Education Secretary designate Hannah Skandera is up for reappointment. The Senate Rules Committee is set to hold a confirmation hearing this morning. News 13's Catherine Mazzone has more on that. Catherine.
Good morning, Adam. When Susana Martinez first nominated Skandera for Secretary of Education during her first term as governor, critics were outspoken about the fact Skandera had never been a teacher. In 2013, the Senate Rules Committee heard hours of testimony on Skandera. Last year, the panel considered the nomination, but it ended with a tie vote not long before the end of the legislative session. Now, this session, several senators have called for a full nomination hearing on the floor. Democrats have criticized Skandera for education reforms and an increased emphasis on testing they say is bad for both students and teachers. Republicans have backed her, saying change is needed to boost the state's low education rankings. Now, this is more about a job title than anything else. Now, even if she doesn't get the confirmation, Skandera can still run the department. The nomination hearing is scheduled for 8:30 this morning before the Senate Rules Committee. Back to you, Adam.
All right, Catherine, thanks. Skandera served as Florida's Deputy Commissioner of Education under former Governor Jeb Bush. She also served as a senior policy advisor and Deputy Chief of Staff at the U.S. Department of Education. On to new developments in the eviction of homeless people from Tent City in downtown Albuquerque. They may now be forced out of a new site this week. More than 100 people packed a community meeting held by the Borellis Community Coalitions. The BCC and the Borellis Neighborhood Association helped Tent City move to 2nd Street in Santa Fe last Wednesday, but the group never got the lot owner's permission, nor did it ask neighbors how they felt about it.
We cannot compromise the safety and vitality of a neighborhood for any group or any cause.
What precedent are we set if we let this go?
I want to personally apologize for us not having this meeting first.
The city says it's now working to evict the new Tent City. Activists think that may happen in the next 3 days. The city of Albuquerque has begun construction on a new multi-use trail in the Bosque, but one group and a city councilor want it stopped. City Councilor Isaac Benton is sponsoring a resolution to halt construction right away. The resolution says the city did not publish a final report on the environmental impact of the trail. Benton says if the resolution passes, the money set aside to work on the trail would be put into an open space land account. The Sierra Club and community members visited the trail yesterday to see the work, which they say is damaging the Bosque.
We've been following this now for months, and the fact that they just went ahead and did it before this was resolved, and the fact that the city just sort of thumbed their nose at them and just went ahead feels very insulting.
The city says they did hold public meetings and that the proper environmental studies were conducted. 5:04 right now. Albuquerque police are checking up now on their own to see if officers are wanted. APD tells us the driver's licenses of sworn employees will now undergo a monthly background check for possible warrant suspensions or expirations. This comes after the arrest of Officer Skylar McClaskey over the weekend. He's accused of child abuse. Police also found an unrelated 2014 warrant against McClaskey, accused of writing bad checks from the Santa Fe County area. We'll have more on the officer's arrest coming up in our next half hour here on KRQE this morning. Vandals, we're staying on top of a search for a man who police say tried to assault a woman on the UNM campus. UNM police are searching for leads now. Police say a man with a knife grabbed a woman as she left Zimmerman Library about 6:30 on Tuesday night. They say he tried to unbutton her jeans, but he was able to get away. The man is described as white, about 5'6", wearing a black hoodie and jeans. And if you have any information, you're asked to call police. Now on to this story. Vandals are targeting a popular part of Albuquerque, one storefront at a time. APD's online crime mapping shows crime in Nob Hill has doubled in the last month, and one business says it's the main target. Just this week, somebody shattered the windows at the sex shop self-serve not once, but twice. The store's been hit by vandals 7 times in the last year. In August, somebody stuck a hose through the store's mailbox and flooded it. They even put glue in the business's door locks so it couldn't open for the day.
It's the repeated assault on our business, like over and over and over again, to the point where we don't know how to handle it.
That problem seems to be spreading. Vandals have tagged the tattoo shop down the street more than a dozen times. APD is now putting up their own security cameras to keep an eye on those stores. Business owners tell us officers are also patrolling the area more often. Today is President's Day. It's a federal holiday, and here are some closures to be aware of as you wake up. Most Albuquerque city offices are closed today, along with all city libraries, most banks too. You will not receive mail, but trash pickup in the metro will run on its normal schedule. The deadline to get health insurance under the Affordable Care Act has come and gone today. Sunday was the last day to enroll under the state exchanges. Those who don't get coverage face penalties when tax season rolls around next year. 7 minutes past the hour, we're following some breaking news this early hour. Egypt is announcing airstrikes on ISIS in Libya. The attacks come after the terrorist group released video of 21 Christians being beheaded over the weekend. Overnight, Egyptians' warplanes targeted Islamic State camps and training sites. Yesterday, the White House condemned the beheadings, saying about ISIS's barbarity, it knows no bounds. Congress is currently talking about the president's request to use military force, something Republican Senator John McCain says he supports.
To restrain him in our authorization of him taking military action, I think, frankly, is unconstitutional.
This morning's announcement from Egypt marks the first time it has publicly acknowledged taking military action in Libya. Developing right now, 2 men are under arrest in connection with 2 shootings in Denmark over the weekend. Police in Copenhagen say the men may have been helping the gunmen who carried out deadly attacks at a cultural center and outside a synagogue. 2 people were killed, 5 officers were injured. Police say the suspect was killed in a gun battle with a SWAT team. Danish investigators believe the attack may have been inspired by the January killings at Charlie Hebdo in Paris. We'll see you then, 5:32. It's been 4 years since Public Education Secretary designate Hannah Skandera was nominated for that cabinet seat. This morning, she could finally get her confirmation hearing as the Senate Rules Committee is set to hold that hearing today. News 13's Catherine Mazzone has more. Catherine?
Good morning, Adam. Now, when Susana Martinez first nominated Skandera for Secretary of Education during her first term as governor, critics were outspoken about the fact Skandera had never been a teacher. In 2013, the Senate Rules Committee heard hours of testimony on Skandera. Last year, the panel considered the nomination, but it ended with a tie vote not long before the end of the legislative session. This session, several senators have called for a full nomination hearing on the floor. Democrats in the past have criticized Skandera for education reforms and an increased emphasis on testing they say is bad for both students and teachers. Republicans have backed her, saying change is needed to boost the state's low education rankings. Now, this is more about a job title than anything else. Even if she doesn't get the confirmation, Skandera can still run the department. The nomination hearing is scheduled for this morning at 8:30 a.m. before the Senate Rules Committee. Back to you, Adam.
Catherine, thanks. Skandera served as Florida's Deputy Commissioner of Education under former Governor Jeb Bush. She also served as a senior policy advisor and Deputy Chief of Staff at the U.S. Department of Education. Today, teachers, students, and parents will march through Santa Fe asking state lawmakers to stop penalizing teachers and students who want to improve New Mexico's schools. The march begins today at noon to 1 p.m. at the Santa Fe Rail Yard and will end with a rally at the Roundhouse. Marchers will also get a chance to meet with lawmakers to discuss public school issues. A proposal, meantime, to close the loophole in New Mexico's child porn law gets its first hearing at the state capitol this week. According to the state Supreme Court, someone caught with those illegal images can only be charged with 1 count, no matter how many pictures they have. Judges asked lawmakers to fix that law, and now a bill is being considered.
It sends a message that New Mexico is not going to stand for this.
If you engage in this type of behavior, and we will prosecute these individuals to the full extent of the law.
The proposal is scheduled to get its first hearing in the coming days at the Roundhouse. We're also monitoring an effort to raise wages and make New Mexico a right-to-work state. The Republican-backed proposal is moving forward in the state House now. It would boost minimum wage 50 cents to $8 an hour and make New Mexico a right-to-work state. Republicans are pitching it as a compromise that would make the state more economically competitive. Democrats call the minimum wage hike proposed meager, and they say right to work is wrong for New Mexico workers. 5:35 and happening this week, the city of Albuquerque is hoping to shut down a new tent city formed after homeless people were evicted from the first site.
I need your attention, please.
More than 100 people gathered for a community meeting about Tent City's new location in Borellis. People living in the original Tent City on First and Iron were evicted last week. The Borellis Neighborhood Association and the Borellis Community Coalition allowed the homeless to move to the vacant lot on 2nd and Santa Fe, but they didn't get the permission of the lot property owner or even ask neighbors what they thought. This meeting was a chance for neighbors to blow off some steam.
This tent cap needs to end immediately.
You guys want some respect? You guys gotta start showing us respect too.
What precedent can we set if we let this go?
The city now says it's working with the property owner to evict the new Tent City. Activists tell News 13 they think it could happen within the next 3 days. A new MDC Special Investigations Unit begins work today. The Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office says it'll be made up of 2 full-time detectives, a sergeant and a lieutenant. They will all be responsible for investigating crimes at the jail. BCSO says this will free up field deputies that in the past would have been pulled off patrol service. Meantime, an APD officer is on paid administrative leave today facing child abuse charges. Skylar McClaskey and his wife Jody appeared in court on Sunday. The 9-year APD veteran stayed silent as he walked from the courthouse. State police arrested them both on Saturday. News 13 sorted through the criminal complaint. It says McClaskey repeatedly slapped Jody's 12-year-old son in their Tijeras home earlier this week, bruising him. She is accused of grabbing the boy's hair and trying to slap him as well. That boy was taken into CYFD custody. A judge ruled that neither person is allowed to see him while the case is pending.
You cannot have any contact with any alleged victim in the case. Understand that?
APD put McClaskey on paid leave on Saturday, and a department spokesperson tells News 13 he will be fired as soon as he's indicted. McClaskey had a bench warrant tied to a 2012 case for writing a bad check. Because APD didn't know about that, they now plan on checking employee driver's licenses every month. We are hoping to learn more this week about a man arrested almost 4 years after a triple homicide near Espanola. On Father's Day in 2011, the bodies of Lloyd, his wife Dixie, and their son Stephen Ortiz were found in a home in El Rancho near Espanola. New Mexico State Police announced on Friday they arrested now 20-year-old Nick Ortiz in that triple murder. News 13 has learned that Nick Ortiz is not related to the family, but the state police have released few details as to how he actually knew them or a possible motive. People in the community are both relieved and shocked.
I think to find out that he was the person that did it, I think people are more shocked than they are relieved. But again, people are relieved that they actually found who did it.
Nick Ortiz would have been 16 or 17 at the time 3 people were killed. He's charged with 3 counts of murder. We're staying on top of a weekend shooting that left 3 people hurt at the Navajo Lodge on Broadway near Bridge. That happened about 1 Sunday morning. APD says all of the victims were taken to the hospital. They're expected to survive their injuries. At last check, no suspect is in custody and no word from police on what actually led to the shooting. We will continue to bring you updates as the details become available. Time is 5:38. People in the Northeast are waking up to another foot of snow on the ground, if you can believe it. The mayor of Boston, in fact, is asking people to stay home, remain patient as the city digs out. Many people have had enough of the storms.
It's been a pain in the neck. It's cold out here. I'm tired. My guys are tired. You know, just can't wait for it to be over.
Marty Walsh says the wind and the cold following that snow could be hazardous. He fears that plows, emergency vehicles might not be able to see people walking around. The mayor says Boston is continuously melting snow at 3 dump locations and has not needed to release any into Boston Harbor. The city has 600 plows working the streets right now. Developing right now, southern states are preparing for a snowstorm of their own. Arkansas, Tennessee, and Georgia are all expecting winter weather to come in. Snow, sleet, and ice are expected in the northern part of Georgia itself. All of that could continue into tomorrow. You know, snow is actually believed to have been the cause of a 23-car pileup in Massachusetts. WCVB in Boston reports many drivers were stuck in their cars for more than an hour on Sunday while first responders worked to free them. Only minor injuries were reported, thankfully.